Hello, good morning. Good morning, good morning. I'm hoping that you guys can see and hear me okay. It is January 20th, 2022. I'm so excited. We are going to dive into Energetics of Beekeeping Masterclass. Yay! I'd love to know in the comments if you guys are live, if you can hear and see me, first of all. And secondly, if you're a beekeeper already, if you're going to become a beekeeper this next year, or if you're just interested in the energetics, the spiritual side of stuff, let me know. Let me know what you're most interested in. If you're a beekeeper, if you're not a beekeeper. I'm a little nervous. This is my first live I've done like this, so bear with me, guys. I am probably going to talk too fast. I tend to talk really fast when I get excited, so yay. Hello, guys. Welcome. Where are you guys from? I know I have a lot of followers, beekeepers from Iran. I'd love to know if you guys are from the States or not. Local, not local. I know I've got a lot of people that are interested in this class from my hometown. So I'd love to know if you guys are from here, from where. Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is. Utah, cool. England, yeah. Right on. Okay, so you guys must be able to hear me. Cool. So my name is Samantha Hallbrook. I am the owner and operator, beekeeper of Honeybee U. That is located out in Elbert, Colorado. I also have hives in Black Forest. So we're at a pretty high altitude. We're on the Palmer Divide, if you guys are local, down in Black Forest. Pretty high elevation. I think it's like 7,200 feet. Definitely not mountainous, but close enough for me for now. We'll see. Iran? Okay, perfect. Cool. Right on, guys. Okay, so my intention throughout beekeeping, and then also specifically for this class, is to help beekeepers find a more harmonious practice. So what I found in beekeeping is that there are a lot of mainstream books. There's a lot of excellent resources. Lafayette, super cool. You guys are close to me. But there's nothing that really tells you, hey, you can be a beekeeper and you can do it absolutely any way you want. And if you're not fitting in here, there are other communities. So that's my goal, to kind of expand the reach of there's more than one way to do it. You can do it in harmony. You can do it in a way that feels good to you. And it doesn't have to be by the books. You get to make your own rules. You get to try things out. You get to fail and you get to start again, because that's one of the beautiful things about beekeeping and about life in general. So, I have notes here because I'm a note taker. So my goal in beekeeping is to feel deeply connected at a soul level with my hives, to feel genuinely good about the decisions I'm making in my management practice. And as a spiritual person and as a ever expanding soul, I like to know that I'm doing my best because of what feels good for me, and that as long as I'm doing that and I'm following those gut instincts, I can only get it right? I can only learn from here. I can only move on. So this masterclass is to create opportunity for that broader conversation, where we include the spiritual side of things, where we're going to include the energetics. If you meditate, if you do yoga, if you're into stuff like that, you're probably really familiar with energy and your energy body, your auric field, and knowing what feels good and what doesn't, and making decisions based on your intuition. As beekeepers, we tend to be very scientific. We tend to say, okay, here's the problem, here's the manageable solution, and here's what I can do about it. And when that doesn't work, we kind of escalate it, right? And in our Western society, we tend to move towards chemical solutions. And although they have a place, and that is phenomenal if that's the way you beekeep, that never felt right for me. And so I turned to more spiritual enlightenment with my beekeeping, and as such found the energetics of beekeeping. And there's definitely the woo-woo side of that, right? Like the energy and talking about your chakras and stuff like that associated with the hive. And then there's also the scientific side of that. So we're talking about geopathic stress lines, the energy signatures and frequencies that hives get off, and things like that. So, my point is, there's a community for everyone, and whether you're in this masterclass for the spiritual side of things or the scientific side of things, I'm going to touch on both of those. So, what is energy in beekeeping? Okay, there we go. What is energy in beekeeping? So to me, energy in general is the essence of life itself, and it's used as a fuel, right? It can never be destroyed. It can only be transmuted into something else. So if you think of solar power, you're using the sun's energy. Old practices of telling the bees. Yes, absolutely. It does go along with the old practice of telling of the bees. Absolutely. Yes. Very fast talker. Okay, I'll try to slow down for you guys. So energy is the essence of life itself. So when we're thinking of solar power, the sun is providing energy for our solar panels, essentially, and that's being transitioned into something else. I believe the same happens with the bees, right? They are able to amplify natural frequencies from the earth, and in turn, that allows us to use that frequency that we originally didn't have access to in a new way. And whether that's coming through us as a beekeeper and being able to tap into those frequencies and use those frequencies and vibrations, or if it's the hive itself being able to tap into higher vibrational frequencies and finding that more ideal frequency that's going to let them live their best life, for lack of better words, right? It's going to let them live in peak performance state. So let's dive into the metaphysical first, because I feel like I'm going to trip over my words more there than I will on the scientific side of things. So there are two types of energies that a hive really maintains, and it's the masculine energy and the feminine energy. And when we talk about energies in this way, it's not about male versus female. When I talk about energy in this sense, I would like you guys to think of running water. So think of a stream. And what you have is these beautiful banks that are holding the running water, right? And you have to have these banks as a support system, and they can shift. They do shift and they deepen, but the banks of the water direct where your water is flowing. And those banks are considered the masculine energy. And so once you have a direction and once you have a form, then you can apply the water. And the water is going to be that feminine energy. And it's going to be flow. It's going to be creativity. It's going to be experimenting. And it's going to be all of the woo kind of stuff, right? So you have to have the masculine energy of structure to support, and then you can have the creativity and the expansion and the excitement of the feminine energy. And in a hive, in beekeeping, what we see as the masculine energy is a lot of structure physically, and the bees, the way they communicate, right? They have systems for everything. They're very specific. They have specific ways of choosing new homes. They know what they like. They know what they don't like. They know what their preferences are, what their non-negotiables are, right? Bees in general, they know what size they want their cells. They know how many drones they want. And then they also leave room for creativity. And in beekeeping, in a sense, I like to see this as nurturing, where they're bringing in this beautiful source of nectar from the wild, and they're bringing that in, and they are ingesting it, and they're making something so beautiful out of what they have and transitioning that into a new energy source, which is going to be their pollen, their bee bread, their nectar into honey, right? Honey, and then they're going to store that, and that's systematic, the way they store that. But until then, when they're changing it into something new, that's where their creativity, that's where their feminine flow comes in. And you can hear that too, the difference in what the hive is requiring based on the sound they're giving off. So when you jump into a hive, if you're a beekeeper and you already have your hive set up, when you first open your hive, sometimes you can hear the pop of the propolis in the spring, and the bees just explode with vibration, right? You can hear the difference in their tone. Something's off. They've switched from being in homeostasis to being on guard. Supersedure happens. Great. They swap the queen. They see at a different level. That's why they say trust your bees. Yes, absolutely, definitely trust your bees, because they definitely know what's going on more than you do, right? Or at least I'd like to think so. Okay, so where was I? So we were talking about, okay, the sound that they're emitting when you break into a hive, right? Iranian beekeeping as a gentleman. Okay. So when you pop that propolis seal and their energy changes, you can hear it most of the time, or if you pull a frame and you just roll a ton of bees, there's a good chance that you've kind of set them off and their pheromones go off. But how we interpret it is through sound, right? They're vibrating differently, which is creating a different frequency, and we can hear that. What we don't hear, what we can't interpret from most of our senses, is when the hive is at peak state. And what I mean from peak state is when their bodies, their chemical makeup is at the precise frequency that it needs to be. And this is where it gets a little more scientific. So Earth naturally gives off an electromagnetic field, or a radiation of sorts, and that is at 7.8 hertz, right? So without this, we would cease to exist, because the Earth gives off this natural radiation, and all organisms accept this radiation or different frequency radiations depending on what they need or want, right? So the honeybee is a superorganism. The hive is that superorganism. And so are ants or termites. They are also creatures that like higher frequencies. So, okay, honeybees prefer a much, much higher frequencies than we do as humans and most other organisms, including pests such as Varroa destructor. They prefer, honeybees that is, prefer a frequency up to 250 hertz, which is awesome, right? Because that means that we can narrow down where the bees are going to be in nature. So they typically choose, when they have the choice, you know, we as beekeepers move them around. We move them around quite a bit to where we determine is best for us as the keeper. What we haven't taken into consideration most of the time is that the bees naturally choose those higher vibrational areas when they swarm. So what we can do as beekeepers, or where we can find those energy signatures, is by looking for higher frequency areas. And the beautiful science behind that is that it is a geopathic stress line is what we're going to look for. And essentially what that is that's a running water, potentially, or mineral deposit, or underground something that's throwing the electromagnetic field of the Earth off and up quite a bit, right? So people used to call it witching, My dad works a lot with underground piping, and he typically uses this way of finding underground streams, or in his case, pipes that have rushing water through them. And so, we kind of take it back, old school, right? That's not something we hear a lot about anymore, is witching, which is fine, using a willow branch essentially, and it'll direct you to where those underground water systems or mineral deposits are. Okay, so just to recap, because I have a lot of stuff going through my head. We as beekeepers have the ability to find these higher frequency locations for our hives, which is going to create a better environment for the bees. These environments are labeled as geopathic stress lines or electromagnetic fields. To find these, you can witch, or you can just find where your underground water lines are or mineral deposits, or you can find a swarm in nature because they're more likely to land and create hives on these geopathic stress lines. Okay, so what happens when these geopathic stress lines appear to the electromagnetic field? It shoots that frequency up. Honeybees prefer 250 hertz. The earth naturally resonates at 7.8 hertz, right? Huge difference, huge difference. So when we put our hives on these geopathic stress lines, their cellular makeup doesn't have to work as hard. They are at a peak performance state at these higher frequencies. So they are taking up less energy to forage. They're eating less because their body is naturally digesting and using that fuel, the food, more efficiently than they would before. Their communication increases, so they have less dissonance between bee to bee. And what else? Also, you receive those healing benefits of that higher frequency honey, that more aligned honey, because everything they do is processed through their body, is processed through the hive, which is on this beautiful energetic line, which is creating higher frequency. If you are into the spiritual side of stuff, people talk about you want to be high vibe, right? You want to be high vibe all the time. You want to find your higher self, your higher frequency. There's a lot of reference to being at a higher vibrational state. Well, when you take in these byproducts of the hive in apitherapy, so it could be propolis, it could be royal jelly, it could be honey, it could be the beeswax itself, what you're doing is you're consuming that higher vibrational energetic signature that's been imprinted into these sources. And then you are actually fueling your body with a different type of energy, but that has that same energetic signature. Okay. So how I like to think of it is like, if you were to use regular unleaded gasoline, right? And that's where your typical beehives are placed, just willy-nilly, whatever, you're using the basics is what you got, which works, and that's no problem. But when you're putting and intentionally finding these energetic stress lines and then putting your bees in those higher frequency locations, it's like changing to premium. Like everything just works a little smoother. I'm not a car person, so if you're a car person, I apologize for this horrible reference, but everything works just a little bit smoother, and maybe you don't know why, maybe it doesn't really make sense, but everything's smoother, everything's a little cleaner, everything's a little better taken care of, and you feel better about it, right? That's what we're going for here. That's what we're going for. But what I want is for you guys to say, okay, I'm going to try this out, and then actually see the benefits of it. See that turn over into better health, better communication with your hive, better understanding of what they need, better management practices, perhaps, right? Okay, so Okay, so how does knowing about energy benefit the bees and the beekeeper? Correct placement of the hives supports the bees at that cellular level. So that's kind of what we just went over. I'm just reading through my notes here. Less energy expended on hive activities. Perfect. Okay, so let's talk about pests at these higher frequency locations, at these higher energies. So typically, pests do not have the same preferences as honeybees. And that is because typically pests are looking for an easy target. In a hive, I would say that means that decaying, for lack of a better word, a decaying hive, right? They're not at their tip top. They're kind of feeling sick. They're kind of feeling lethargic. That's what a pest would go after. And I'm talking here about pests, but in my head, I'm talking about varroa mites. So varroa mites do not like the same frequency that the bees do. So not only are you providing this space where the bees are able to better manage their own assets, right? Their communication, their collection of pollens and nectars, their workforce, their all of that stuff. They're better managing that, but also the mites aren't as attracted to this location. The mites aren't provided the peak frequency that is best for their cellular body. So they are now the diseased or the decaying part of this combination, and the honeybees are at their peak performance. So they are better able to manage themselves with mites. They're more hygienic, they're more on top of things, their communication's better, right? So when they have those mites at the bottom of the cells, they can quickly clean those out, get rid of stuff. This pans over to beekeeper. So this is going to create less intrusive or drastic management needs. Okay, so I love getting into my bees. Love it. Love the sound, love the smell, love seeing what's going on, but the bees don't love it all the time. So this allows you to be less intrusive and only open your hives when you're feeling like it or when you're doing your actual inspections, right? And that allows the bees to have more of their space, their home, their safe space, so they're not being disrupted in their regular everyday life. Though it also provides those higher healing benefits from the hive byproducts. So if you're into apitherapy, which most beekeepers I would say are, just because that's like the fun part in the winter if you have a winter where you are, the benefits that come from these byproducts are phenomenal. Take a drink real fast. Okay, so I had said it earlier, and I'm going to say it again because I know that I'm talking really, really quickly, and it's because I'm so excited. So, when you are placing your hives over those geopathic stress lines, which are creating higher frequency environment for the hive, the bees not only are working at their peak performance, but any of the byproducts that are coming from this hive are also going to have the energetic signature of these higher vibrational frequencies. So when we're talking about tinctures, so propolis tinctures, when you're talking about beeswax, or even just the honey itself that's coming from these hives, they are going to emit this healing frequency from the hive, right? Because they're created from these bees that are at peak performance. So they have 100% of the nutritional and energetic healing benefits that we can expect from a hive. 100%. If you are a hunter or perhaps just a gatherer, if you have a garden, right? When you go out to your garden and your soil's kind of been iffy and you haven't really watered them as your plants as well as you should have, can you expect beautiful red ripe tomatoes? I mean, It's hard to expect that if you didn't put in the time and effort, right? So, but if you have the most beneficial, nutritious soil, if you have the sun in the if you have your garden in the perfect placement for the sun and it's getting just the perfect amount of sun every day, if you don't have any of the crazy frosts that are killing stuff off, if you can keep the deer away, then when you pick that tomato at the end of the season, it's going to be beautiful and red and ripe, and it's going to have so much flavor and nutritional value. And on top of that, doesn't it feel good to eat that kind of food? Doesn't it feel different to taste the nutrients in something and feel that energetic signature that is life being transmitted to you from this place, right? I myself am a hunter, so when I reference that, I'm talking about wild animals. They've been fed on wild stuff. They're eating all the most nutritious stuff. They're eating everything free range. They've experienced life to this immense. They have gratitude for life, right? They know what it feels like to be free. They know what it feels like to be in a community. They know the hardships. They know the benefits, right? So when you are harvesting an animal in that way, you are receiving all of that energetic signature. You're receiving the freedoms, the gratitude, the wild foods, all of that stuff. My point is, when you harvest honey or any byproduct of a hive that has experienced the best of the best possible life that they could have had, that energy signature is transferred into the food that they provide, into the byproducts that they are creating. And in turn, you are harvesting the highest vibrational foods. And it brings your healing, your internal healing, your vibrational healing, your energetic body back up to peak frequency. So that's just really cool. And besides that, if you're not a beekeeper and you've never had local raw honey, there is such a difference. If you're a beekeeper, you know how different it is than store-bought processed heated honeys. So different, so different. You can taste the difference, just like you can hear the difference when you pop the lid of a hive, right? There is definitely a frequency difference that occurs from a hive working at 70% capacity and a hive over a geopathic stress line that is working at peak performance. What is the difference between a bee and life? I'm not sure what you mean. Can you clarify? What is the difference between a bee and life? Can you clarify that question for me? I'd love to answer that. Okay. Okay, so this was supposed to be about 45 minutes. I know that I talked so fast. I'm sorry, you guys. Like I said, when I get excited, I talk really fast. So, are there any questions you guys want to ask in the comments? If you're on the live, I would love to answer those for you. If anything was unclear, if I ran through anything too fast, go ahead and throw those out real fast and I'll get to those. Okay, so most of us as beekeepers already have our hive locations, and or it's not as easy to move onto a geopathic stress line. I know for me personally, I have a limited amount of space, and that's where I get to beekeep. And I'm not going to give up beekeeping because I can't find the perfect energetic signature, right? So what we can do, go ahead and ask your question about the queens. I'm not sure if I can answer it for you or not, but go ahead and ask that, and I'll do my best. I'm not an expert at queens. I don't rear them, so just a heads up. Okay, so what we can do as beekeepers is we can create a higher geopathic stress line. Or, excuse me, we can create a higher electromagnetic field for the bees that we cannot move onto geopathic stress lines. And we do this through resonance, right? So when you think of a bell and you have one bell ringing and the other bell's not ringing, if they come into close enough proximity, that second bell is going to find resonance and come to the same sound as that first bell, right? So what we can do is we can use what we have. So we have the earth emitting that 7.8 hertz, right? And then science has come up with these tools that allow us to amplify that natural frequency up to a higher vibration. And those are called EMT, electromagnetic transfer tools. And you can purchase those online. What medicines do you use against varroas? So I use heat treatments. I use thermal heat treatments as well as energy transfer tools, which I'm talking about right now. So what you can do is create that resonance. And I have one here. So this is a CD from Valerie Solheim, and what it is it's a recording of an incredibly healthy hive, and she has different, like this one's Fall Harvest Healing Bees. She has different CDs for different times of the year, and it is that hive expressing that highest frequency as a sound, right? It's literally a recording of them vibrating inside their hive at peak frequency. And you put the CD underneath your hives and you put the energy transfer tool. What I use is crystal quartz generators because I'm a crystal lover myself, and plus they're much cheaper than some energy frequency tools. And what it does is it gives off the frequency of this CD. It emits it out into the world, I suppose, the environment. And then what happens is, so the CD's here with your energy transfer tool and your bees are sitting on top of it. So this is under your hive or right around it. The bees come into resonance. They meet that same frequency that is on the CD and they create that same frequency within the hive. What this does is it brings them to that peak state without having to find different fields. Okay, let me get through some of these questions real fast. When you make a walk-away split, how they call it, bees will start making their queens, but is there a thing about what eggs they choose to make queen? I know that there is so the question is, when you make a walk-away split, is there something special about the eggs that they choose to make their queens from? I'm not entirely sure. That is definitely not my my forte. I do the walk-away splits when necessary. I know that they have to choose an egg. I think it's between 1 and 4 days old. I'm not 100% sure on that. I would definitely check those dates. But I'm not sure what about the egg they choose is so special. I don't know that. Some people say, some people say grafting is bad because you are choosing the egg instead of letting the bees do it. Yeah, no, I totally agree that there is probably something to letting the bees choose their own eggs. I'm sure that they have a specific reason for the eggs they choose, as long as they're not put in like a really, really tight, chokehold, for lack of a better word. But I am not sure what it is. I'm sure that it has something to do with pheromones or how strong that queen would be. I don't know how they do it though. Do you have any achievements in the field of nature and non-organic honey and its effect on product quality? Do you have any achievements in the field of nature and non-organic honey and its effects on product quality? I don't. I personally don't see the benefits of purchasing something that's labeled non-organic. And the reason for that is that there are so many local beekeepers that are able to give you raw honey as opposed to organic honey, excuse me, and its effect on product quality. The rules and regulations for organic label, at least here in the US, are so interesting. I think it's like you have to have your hives in center and 3-mile radius of organic farming or agriculture around that. I'm not entirely sure. My perspective is based on what makes me feel good and what tastes good. So I don't really have any information as far as non-organic versus organic honey goes. Okay, I don't know what eggs are good and bad. I graphed and we really don't know why they choose some and not others. It's a super interesting question. I would love to know that too. I'm sure that ties back in with genetics, or somehow the bees just know and there's a way that they know and I don't know what that is. But if you ever come across somebody that says they do, I would love to speak with them. Okay, perfect. So, I think I got through the whole resonance thing, right? We can create resonance within our hives without necessarily moving the hives, as long as we have the right tools. And that's where that resonance comes in, and that coherent energy. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so that is just about it for energies, as far as how they benefit us, how we can use them, why it's important to know kind of what's going on. I do want to talk about some offers that I have coming up in the US. It's about to be spring, and I'm so excited for all of you beekeepers, anybody that's new, anybody that's beekeeping, because there's so much opportunity, there's so much curiosity that comes along with being a beekeeper. So I am opening today my cart for my one-on-one 8-week mentorship. And it's my signature mentorship. It's called Beekeeping Blueprint. Okay, perfect. That's great information, BW honeybees. Do you see an improvement in the Varroa drop after using the CD resonance? Okay. It's hard to say, Scott Clark stills. It's really hard to say because I do use thermal heat treatments 2 to 3 times a season on all of my hives, no matter what. So it's really difficult to say. What I have seen improvement in immediately is their aggressiveness. My hives tend to be less aggressive after I add those CDs, as well as honey production. They're much more efficient. It's hard to say because seasons are so different. Like nothing is set in stone as far as the weather and the nectar flow goes, but I've definitely noticed a difference, specifically in temperament, but also with the collection of honey. Nectar to honey, right? And comb building. I've seen incredible improvements in comb building. But Valerie Solheim, the creator of these Healing Bees CDs, she has an awesome book, and she goes into way more detail about her experiences, and she has actual logs that she has in her books where you can go through and kind of read her experience and how well her bees did after adding those. So I have my signature program open as of today, Beekeeping Blueprint. It's a one-on-one 8-week mentorship program. It is available online. I do want to mention that it is not a how-to by any means. What we do is we focus on breaking down your management practice. So why do you use the treatments you do? What success have you seen with them? Does it feel good to you to be treating in that way? Or are you feeling frustrated? Are you confused? Are you not seeing the results you want? And we're going to break that down to the foundational level of your values and what makes sense for you and your bees, and then rebuild your management practice with the integrated pest management pyramid, and we're going to work from the bottom up and get you to a place where you're loving your bees again, they're loving you, you're having a great time, and the curiosity is just sky high, right? Where you're learning something all the time from a place of integrity and a place of respecting your values, and and not so much treat because I have to, but more treat because that's what's right for the hives right now, and establishing that line of communication between you and your hives and knowing what they need at what time. If you're brand new to beekeeping, you may want to check out my, it's an online pre-recorded course. It's called Bloomin' Beekeeper, and it's a what you need to get going kind of thing. So if you have no idea where to start, that's a really good resource, and it'll just kind of get you asking the right questions. You'll know what kind of equipment and supplies you need for starting your first season. Excuse me. This is peppermint tea, by the way. I saw a comment earlier and I didn't get to it, but it's peppermint tea. And also, I know that I had a ton of local neighbors and friends and people that are interested that I posted on Facebook. So if you guys are here, if you're watching this, I do have local in-person mentorships, as well as just individual hive visits that you can purchase if you just want to see if beekeeping is right for you. I highly recommend joining a local club if you haven't already, and or checking out some of these programs I have available for you. I do want to say this is really specifically for, and I love talking about and working with people that are interested in the energetics, in the spiritual growth, in the connection you can have with Mother Earth. And that's really what I focus on in all of my programs, is coming back to what makes sense for the bees and us as beings coexisting together, and not necessarily how to manage the hive using treatments, right? This is more about management based on integral communication from the hive. So if that sounds great, you can reach out to me immediately. If you're on my mailing list, I will email you out a copy of this recording, as well as some of those opportunities. Otherwise, you guys have a phenomenal day. I'm so glad you could make it here. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.